appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the debate on Bill 67, a bill that forces power workers at Ontario Power Generation back to work, a bill that, quite frankly, I wish we didn't have to debate today, but nevertheless, we are having this conversation. The government's quick introduction of this bill raises many questions for me, my constituents, and the people of Ontario. OPG and the Power Workers Union have not made much progress at the bargaining table for a number of months now. The government has known that a work stoppage involving nuclear power plants and 50% of the province's electricity system was possible. And it appears to me that the government's been asleep at the switch. Here we are in the middle of the holiday season, and people are being told by the minister to worry about whether their lights will be turned on in a few days, and whether those who rely on electric heating will be able to heat their homes. The minister says we are facing a crisis. Well, if we are facing a crisis, I want to ask, and I believe many Ontarians want to ask, what has the government done to prevent this crisis? As the sole shareholder of Ontario Power Generation, what has the government done to encourage a fair settlement and a fair bargaining process? Has the government even tried to facilitate a settlement at the bargaining table? Could the government have moved to binding arbitration without taking the power workers' right to strike away from them? I believe the government has a responsibility to the people of Ontario to be honest and to be transparent about what, if any, efforts have been made to encourage both the union and OPG to bargain in good faith and to reach a negotiated settlement. Nobody wants the lights to go out. Nobody wants rolling blackouts. It's bad for our quality of life, for our communities, for our economy. It affects public health and safety. And the government's only answer so far is to bring the hammer down, and in some ways to almost gleefully use this as a wedge issue to hammer the opposition. People want and deserve answers. They want and deserve sensible solutions to this situation. They want negotiated agreements that are fair, not political games or over-the-top rhetoric. I will remind the members opposite that the campaign is over. It's time to govern responsibly and respectfully. People want government to deliver solutions, not wedge issues. People also want government to know that government will make sure this does not happen again. And so this raises another question for me. Why is Ontario's electricity system so vulnerable? Why are we in a situation where 3 big centralized power plants supply over 50% of Ontario's electricity system? It's risky to have most of our eggs in one basket, especially when it comes to something so essential as electrical power generation. Any investor knows that you spread your risk out over a variety of options. Businesses know that you don't want all of your customers to be in one place or all of your suppliers to come from one supply. Consumers shop around for the best deal. Our current situation is a wake-up call that Ontario needs more diversified sources of electricity generation. Part of that diversification strategy should include additional generation sources that are more flexible to be turned on and off quickly. As the minister has noted, one reason the government was forced to act so quickly to end this dispute so quickly is that it takes weeks to safely shut down a nuclear power plant, and then it takes weeks to safely turn it back on. A contributing factor to our current challenge is that Ontario is overly reliant on an inflexible source of power generation. Countries around the world are moving towards more decentralized distributed electricity systems. Distributed energy is more resilient, They are less vulnerable to extreme weather events, strikes, terrorist attacks, and any other threats. Distributed energy systems tend to be more efficient. They're more democratic. They're better for our economy. They don't concentrate wealth and power in fewer hands. They foster more local job creation and economic activity. Technology is rapidly making local microgrids and storage systems clean, efficient, and reliable. That is why many countries around the world and many distribution companies are making significant investments in local microgrids, local distribution systems, and storage systems, so they're less vulnerable to the kinds of situations Ontario finds themselves in today. So the situation we're in today should be a wake-up call, Madam Speaker, a wake-up call that Ontario needs to make this move as well. And I want to be clear, I'm not opposed to all sources of centralized power generation. What I'm asking this government to do, though, as we think about what we learn from the situation we're in today, as we develop a new long-term energy plan, is to make sure that Ontario is never this vulnerable again, that we're ever in this kind of situation again, where a handful of workers can put our entire power system in jeopardy. And so it's clear that Ontario needs to make investments in moving towards a more decentralized distributed system. And so this vote today for me has been a tough decision. I've thought about it long and hard. It's putting two things at conflict for me, and I want to be very clear to my constituents about that. On the one hand, I believe workers have a right to bargain. I believe workers have a right to strike. I believe workers' bargaining rights should be respected, and that we should encourage and facilitate workers and employers negotiating fair settlements at the bargaining table. But I also recognize that we have a responsibility as parliamentarians to put the public good and the public safety first, to ensure that power is delivered to people, to ensure that we have a system that's reliable and safe, especially a system that right now is so overly dependent on nuclear power. And so I've reached out to my constituents and I've asked people on all sides of this issue, well, how would they vote? And I want to just say how much I deeply appreciate all the people in Guelph who've gotten back to me, talked to me about this issue, and emphasized over and over again to me, Mike, can you deliver a message? Can you deliver a message at this moment to talk about the vulnerability of Ontario's electricity system? And so that's what I've tried to do with my time today. I want to be clear to the government that I've landed that I'm going to vote for this bill. I'm going to vote for it, and the reason I'm going to vote for it, there's one component is why. Is because you elected to go to binding arbitration. Because I feel like this should be decided at arbitration. And if the government had put in the bill a legislated settlement, I'd be voting against it. But I don't think this is going to be the first time or the last time, or it's not even the first time, I should say, and it won't be the last time that we've had this debate and this discussion about negotiating contracts and about labour rights. And so I think the government needs to be put on warning, Madam Speaker, that that the people of Ontario are going to mobilize. They're going to be opposed to a government that doesn't respect labour rights. And so I hope this is the last time. I don't think it will be, but I hope this is the last time in this Parliament that we have this kind of discussion, because workers should have the right to bargain fairly at the table. So thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to participate in today's debate.